Hello guys, welcome to Redditor's Revenge. Here we post amazing revenge stories daily. And if you want more content like this, please subscribe to the channel and stay tuned with us. Moving on to today's first story. Background: I work in social work with individuals with intellectual disabilities. Part of that work involves working with children who have mental health issues (CMH). I am currently the only male staff in the area who's qualified to work with kids because it requires a ton of special training. The cast: I, a 25-year-old newbie to social work. BK, brat kid, a decent kid with some brat-like tendencies and one awful mother. BM, brat's mom, witch mom, or piece of literal, non-figurative shit, take your pick. DW, Daniel Ducking Webster, the greatest lawyer who ever lived, reincarnated into a local defense attorney. With that all said, let's get down to business. Exposition: time to do the adult thing. In 2012, I moved out of my parents' home and back to the town where I went to college, having taken a job at a local social workplace. It's a great place, has its issues much like any similar business, but at the end of the day, its heart is in the right place. One of my duties early on was to work with 3 kids, BK and 2 others in a neighboring town, 15 minutes away or so. Each Wednesday 3 male staff would all go over and hang out with the kids. It went well. Each kid pack bonded with a different member of the party, and we made great strides with them. The kid who pack bonded with me was of course BK. Most of their issues involved behavioral stuff, so we had to stop them from picking on each other. Mostly though, we played Minecraft and Roblox. Yeah, I got paid for that. It was the best, and it went on for about 6 months or so till school got out in May of 2013. When summer went by, BK was out of the party because he had other stuff to do, camp stuff, I assume. Anyway, summer gets out, and BK is back with the group. Now, as I was prepping to work with him again, I'd heard around the office his mom was quite a pill. Now, we live in a tiny little conservative community, and unfortunately, the populace is a bit racist. The woman's Hispanic, and I'd noticed a trend that Hispanic parents were often disparaged in the office, so I didn't think much of it. Rising action: why the hell didn't I see this coming? On my first time back with the kid, we decided to go swimming. Now, we'd done this before, usually with 2 staff, but the kids aren't that much of a handful, so I took the shift on my own. NBD, right. Anyway, swimming goes well, but when we're getting out of the pool and in the locker room, I get dressed on my own, then come out to find BK just standing there, naked as the day he was born. I encourage him to get dressed and he says no. Again, while avoiding any eye contact whatsoever. Hey, that ceiling tile is interesting AF, you know. I tell him again he needs to get dressed. BK says if you don't let me do what I want, I'll say you touched me. Excuse me, what the fuck? I play it off as NBD, telling him well then I won't be able to work with you anymore. He apologizes. I get back to the office and say, hey BTW, this kid threatened to say I touched him. Boss and I make a note of it, and we both agree he had to have heard it somewhere. As the fall goes on, kids have trouble in school. Mom behind the scenes is trying to convince people that one of the other kids in the group is touching him. I don't put 2 and 2 together, but def stand up for the other kiddo. He's very into women and thinks boys are icky. BK, on the other hand, is about as touchy-feely as Liberace in a penis factory. I note this all in the doc, of course. Lon continues asking me to work with him one-on-one. Again, no connection was made. Sweet, more money. I do it. Documenting thoroughly, of course, anytime he does weird shit, which is increasingly often. It's all going pretty well, then comes my TIFU moment. Climatic moment. This is theater lingo, not sex, you damn perverts. So once a month, we do a kids overnight at a neighboring town. We go to a hotel, swim, play video, and so on. Come Nav, the boss encouraged me to let some of the kids I work with go along, so I tell parents. Only BM is interested, so BK goes with it. All goes well, till bedtime anyway. At this point, BK snags the big bed that's usually reserved for 2 kids. I have to stay in the room with him, so I get a blow-up mattress ready. Then the little shit asks me to use the bed too. Excuse me, what the fuck? We of course had separate beds, but it didn't matter in the end. On January 2nd, it happened. BM made a formal accusation. She went down the line saying I did everything in the book at every location we'd ever visited on our outings. Diddled him in the library, diddled him at the park, diddled him in the hotel room with a vivid account of penetration for good measure. Now, this is the point in the story where BM's job becomes incredibly important. See, she works at the Department of Human Services. Akea, the place in my state that hands out food stamps, welfare checks, and accusations of child abuse. She's just a food stamp pusher, but she likes to use discrimination as a battle cry anything doesn't go her way, and so despite no evidence, she forced the issue. DHS makes a formal 30-day analysis, and when it's all done, guess what? I'm cleared. End of the story, right? Nah bro. Mom appeals without my knowledge and adds an hour-long doll therapist session into the evidence without my knowledge. The case goes from unfounded to confirmed founded and placed without my knowledge. March 28, 2014. Suddenly I no longer have a job and can't work in my chosen field for 10 years. Excuse me, what the fuck? Falling action. Enter Daniel Ducking Webster. So up until now it's probably not been super clear why mom's pulling this shit. Thing is, she's out of a home because she's out of money, and she wants to sue my place of employment to get a new home. Currently, they're living in a donation house that's set to be demolished. I find out this and other facts during my investigation period. At this point, revenge isn't on my mind. I just want to get out of the hellhole I've been thrown into. The first thing I do is start asking around town. The lady has a rep, after all. I talk to the cop who refused to arrest me due to no actual evidence, and he says she's been pulling shit with him for years. For example, she's trying to get the library director arrested for refusing to cancel her overdue fine. Discrimination, of course. We talk for some time and he ends it with, well, maybe I'll start telling her no a bit more. I then head over to the library, and sure enough, the director's all too happy to chat with me, off the record of course due to confidentiality. The conversation ends with, well, maybe I'll call her about getting that fine paid. This continues for a few stops as I slowly release her stranglehold on prominent community members, effectively ostracizing her. At one stop, someone suggests I head to a local lawyer who's well known for not taking any shit. I head over to his office and we chat a bit. He agrees to take the case for half price. At first, he thinks I'm a raving lunatic with serious paranoia issues. As time goes on, he collects evidence that paints a very clear picture of what she's doing. He says to me, you know, I think she's making the whole thing up to get a lawsuit. The state's attorney general, yes, really at first I can't understand why he's giving out subpoenas faster than Charlie Sheen gives out STDs, but after seeing the evidence she gets on board too. The only problem is the local DHS does not. See, they want a definitive answer, not a settlement. Why? Because they want to fire BM. By this point, DW can't stand those a-holes, but we have to let it play out. My favorite moment from this period is a phone conference where BM calls and trying to stop my appeal, and gets told to shut the fuck up by the Attorney General and DW. She leaves the call sobbing as she's kicked off by her counsel. At last, we determine in a settlement that I take a polygraph. If I pass, the state drops everything. If I fail, I drop my appeal. If it's inconclusive, it goes to trial. Now, DW straight up says, I never tell people to take polygraphs. People say one thing and the polygraph shows another, it's rarely good for a case. But you need to take that polygraph. He did this under the full understanding that we could walk at any time if it appeared to go in a direction we didn't like. And I said yes because, quite frankly, I was out of money. So I take the polygraph and passed, in the minimum amount of time allotted for the test. Merry Ducking Christmas. Denouement, sweet, sweet revenge. Now, as you may have been noting, I've been taking little actions here and there to prevent this woman from exercising influence. Oh boy, did they add up. After my polygraph test, the woman was immediately fired. The other DHS employees had throughout been telling my bosses she's a ducking moron, and suddenly they're not allowed to say anything about her. They dropped her like the dirty rotten beer shit that she is. I immediately file a cease and desist order to prevent her from saying one damn word about me. My boss calls me in. Yes, I got my job back, looking very angry. She says, do you have any idea what you've done? Then grinning, tells me BM pulled her kid from our program. A few weeks later, I'm walking through Walmart and guess who I see? Their newest employee, BM. I take the high road and avoid her while simultaneously taking the low road and asking others who know her what's going on. Turns out she lasted a month or two at Walmart before trying the same damn shit and getting kicked out on her ass. Last I heard, she moved out of state and was later seen trying to file her taxes illegally in our state. Her lawyer screamed her out of his office. In the end, I don't know how much my actions brought about her downfall. She more or less did it to herself. I just saw her on a cliff and pushed. Silly BM, you thought I'd be an easy mark. Update. Let me make it very clear that I don't want any politicization. My current stance is that I believe survivors until they are proven wrong. DHS did its job in taking this seriously, and my lawyer did his job in disproving it. I had previously said the system works, but I now realize this wasn't accurate in conveying my opinion. The system is broken, but it is most often broken in favor of people like me. I don't want my story to be used as an excuse to deny victims a voice. I also don't want any racist BS. People often use their skin color, ethnicity, religion, etc. to get free things. This is just an extreme example. The woman's unbalanced AF, but she is not representative of a whole. Last but not least, this was an administrative appeal, where far more onus is on me than necessary to prove the appeal is warranted. If you're offered a poly with conditions in a criminal proceeding, it can only hurt you. Now, here is the end of our first story, and I hope you enjoyed this story. Guys, I want to hear your thought about this story in the comments section, and have you encountered such Karen in your life, you can share it. And, before you move ahead, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to remain updated on more fantastic stories. Now, moving on to our final story. During my bachelor's studies, I fell in love with a girl from another country. She was diagnosed with a terminal illness shortly after we started dating. It was a long distance, but we used any opportunity to see each other. However, they were few. One such opportunity arose in the form of a conference in her country. We were in the same field and she was involved in the organizing of the conference and got me on the list. I raised some funds to go, but another student was quite annoyed because he wanted to go and believed I had stolen his spot. He made very little effort to raise money and wasn't planning on giving any presentations, etc. The conference kicks off and things are going well. I'm participating, presenting, and representing my university very well. But the GF fainted one day and I took her to the hospital. The illness was already known to us, so I was worried. She ended up having minor surgery and I stayed with her in the hospital for a day and joined the conference again the next day. As planned, I stayed an extra week with her after the conference. When I got back home, I was blindsided by disciplinary action for going AWOL during duty travels. The other student found out I missed one day of the 7 of this conference and reported it, but grossly exaggerated. He knew I was in the hospital with a terminally ill partner but failed to mention this when lodging the complaints. This was a big deal because part of the funding I raised was from the government. I was facing both disciplinary action by my university, expulsion on the table, and charges brought by the government. I tried to appeal to his humanity, bro, she's literally dying, but he wouldn't budge, and the damage had been done. I was able to explain this in the university hearing and with a lawyer at my own cost. Literally all the money I had made over 4 years of a side job was able to get the government charges dropped. He suffered no repercussions for this, but his thesis defense was coming up and I wanted to see if I could interfere with his session. Even pointing out a little oversight to embarrass him would satisfy me. So, I studied his thesis. These are made public before a seminar. I came to the seminar very prepared. I found a huge error in his methodology, and I formulated a short, concise question to put him on the spot. The most I could expect was that this would negatively affect his final grade. As soon as I could, I took the floor to ask this question. He went red, couldn't explain. And his confidence took such a knock that he was unable to adequately answer the questions that followed. The review board failed him and he had to spend another 2 semesters at the university to start the project over. A costly extension, tuition fees, plus he also had to fund the new thesis work himself. This was a few years ago, but I heard recently that since he missed the first intake of recent graduates from our year, he ended up at a less than ideal company that went bankrupt shortly after and has been struggling since. I didn't mean for it to go that far, but I don't feel bad about it. Unfortunately, she passed away a few months later, and I'm quite sure he knew and had no idea if he felt any remorse for what he did. Now, here is the end of our today's video, and I felt bad for OP, and his GF, may her soul rest in peace. And before you guys leave, I want to hear your thought about this story in the comments section, and let me know, what would you do if you were in the same situation? Also, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel and press the notification bell to remain updated on more fantastic stories.